Welcome again to another episode of the JR&Skipps podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the recent FIFA controversy and if Infantino is really for the good or for the bad of the game. My name is JR with my co-host Skipps. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's go.
Yeah, JR, a good introduction, man. Talking about this whole FIFA shenanigans with Infantino. There's been talk about Infantino wanting to privatize some commercial aspects of FIFA by introducing private equity. An indication is actually promising those that sign up that they're going to get $20 million each. So the big
Wow.
question, though, is if you're going to get $20 million, then that money definitely has to be paid back in some form. So what do you think about
Exactly.
this idea? Do you think it's gonna mess up FIFA as a brand, or do you think it's a good idea for football?
So I'm gonna approach this from like both perspectives, right? First things first, let's take Infantino at face level and see why was he trying to propose this kind of radical change to FIFA. In his words, the game has to keep evolving, and we have to look for new ways to make football self-sufficient by raising money and all that. While I disagree, because I think the current format we have right now with selling sponsorship slots and sometimes be creative with how to generate funds, I think it's okay. But I also see where it's coming from because, like you said, the game has to be self-sufficient when it comes to funding. But like you
Yeah,
already mentioned, right, if we are not able to put a face to where the source of investment is coming from, then that opens us up for background, like hands behind the scenes,
well,
being the puppet master that we don't understand about, right? So if you're already signaling a bounty of $20 million for each accepting FA, definitely, like you said, the money has to be paid back in some way. It might be in favors, it might be in giving them a little bit more leverage than they should have. And that's how the game gets watered. Very soon they will be itching for certain radical decisions that we might not be able to say no to because we don't even know the level of control they have behind the scenes, right? And that's how you get things like 78 World Cup teams. You get World Cup every 2 years, and you get four quarters in football. While I do agree that football has to find more innovative ways so that we don't fall back. But looking at the last World Cup, I don't think we have that problem right now. Football is still a very global brand. It's very lucrative, and I think Infantino also went about it the wrong way. I don't think there was enough consultation, which is why we saw UEFA and so many other FAs feel blindsided and push back vehemently. But yeah, what do you think?
yeah. I think you've touched on some excellent points in terms of introducing like private equity, because that basically means that FIFA becomes a capitalist activity. And as you said, if everyone's gonna get a huge fat paycheck of $20 million, man, that money has to be paid back. And if there's
Mhm.
one thing we know, money always has to be paid back with interest. So you touched on some points about like 78 World Cup teams, World Cup every 2 years, quarters and games instead of halves. Man, that's something that can definitely happen, because once you introduce a private equity, then definitely they become at the top echelon in terms of decision making. And we all know
Exactly.
that in terms of how you make money, money is made by advert placements, trying to
Right?
create some commercial placements to recover the funds you expend to in
Hmm.
terms of making FIFA a brand. So
I agree.
obviously, man, if that happens, then I don't think it's going to be good for FIFA, because I think FIFA is already quite self-sustainable. Looking at the last World Cup, you can't tell me FIFA didn't cash out of that World Cup, even though you had an increased amount number of teams. So to
Exactly.
me, just leave it the way it is. There's always room for improvement, but don't try to change the game too much by trying to make it a capitalist activity. I don't think that's going to be good for the game. From the recent news we've seen, the
Mm.
indication is Infantino is sort of pulling back, because
Mm.
UEFA basically pulled out their support for him. There's an
Right?
indication that there's going to be a vote of no confidence in terms of the upcoming FIFA election. So
Mm.
maybe it's time for Infantino to go. What are you saying about that, though? Do you think it's been a good thing for FIFA, or maybe he's just, had a good stay and it's time to pack his bags?
I mean, given where FIFA was coming from with the old dark cloud that was hovering over it with Sepp Blatter, and we all know how Sepp Blatter was hounded out due to corruption
Yeah,
allegations. Everyone thought Infantino was a breath of fresh air, and
great guy.
yes, he came in and he tried to clean the image. But like it seems like in life, the more things change, the more things stay the same, right? and now we are accusing Infantino of basically doing certain things that Sepp Blatter would not have done. I can't believe a time will have ever come that we will be missing Sepp Blatter as FIFA president. But like you said, we have to preserve the soul of the game. We cannot change it into a capitalistic venture. That just waters down the story, the entertainment, and the soul and the passion of the game. So I think rightfully is facing some backlash. I think UEFA really utilized their block and their influence by pushing back and also threatening his position. And you can see he has walked back the decision, rightly admitting that maybe he did not do enough consultation. And now he has been exposed for what he did. He's facing a huge no confidence in the voting bloc. But I think with federations like the Oceana and CAF, I think Infantino still has some allies and money talks, at the end of the day. Infantino has been good and great to some FAs and some federations. So I don't think they will just shelve him away easily. There's a reason why UEFA hasn't gotten their man as the FIFA president yet. Is because Infantino is also a shrewd politician when it comes to garnering votes. But yeah, interesting times ahead. We'll see how this turns out for sure.
Yeah, I think you touched on some very good points there in terms of CAF being potential allies. If there's one thing we know about the African leader is
Of
how to siphon
course.
money and
And follow they
make the
follow the
most
leader
of
where
it.
there's money, of course.
Exactly, and we know that money is never gonna flow down to the people that actually need it in terms of developing African football.
Exactly,
And, the
exactly.
sound of $20 million must have been
Oh,
ringing in their
we
ear
we
and
we,
giving them
we saw
sleepless
Amaju
nights.
Pinnick already dust off his
Having
shirt
something.
and made an appearance already advocating. I'm sure
Oh
he's already
man,
in done the picture how he go take build new house for Delta with the glass
bro,
house
trying
and
to
all
get
that.
his cut at
And
least a
how to
million
siphon
bucks.
that money, right? So I don't think Infantino is going to lose that block of people behind him as long as he keeps putting money in their purses for sure.
Yeah, and just to take this in another way, though, trying to play devil's advocate here, even though I'm not a huge fan of Infantino, what if this is just politics and at the football highest level where UEFA are trying to get rid of Infantino, bring in their man, and just maybe Infantino has a really great idea that might be beneficial for football,
Oh,
but,
you're right.
you know,
You're right. Because
we all
that's
don't
why
see it.
initially I was approaching it from two perspectives, right? Because we might also
Yeah,
be looking at a PR being run by the opposition. What's to say like that this is not a good idea or great idea for football? And UEFA or the other big blocks are just a little bit sad that they are not the ones leading the radical change. So it means they don't get a
yeah,
bigger percentage of the pie, right? So at the end of the day, I
exactly.
know no one is amoral in the sense that no one is perfect. At the end of the day, it's just what we see from the outside. And from the outside, I think the opposition have been able to spin a very good PR to the fact that they didn't consult properly, and this is a bad thing for football because, like you said, UEFA might bring in their man, and in a few years down the line, they introduce
Same
something like
shit.
this too. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
right
well, everything is just about optics, and you control the media, you control the narrative. So
for
let's
sure,
see
for
how it
sure.
goes. And just maybe Infantino gets his way eventually, and everyone is happy. Because if you want to go back to, as we touched on before we started the pod, UEFA actually tried to introduce the Super League, which was obviously a financially motivated decision. And the fans of football clubs eventually pushed back, and that idea eventually got dead and buried in the water. So just maybe they have the same idea, but they're not happy they were the ones to front it and they're trying to get rid of Infantino, bring in their guys. Well, I guess what we can do is let's have you guys let us know what you think. Do you think
Exactly.
Infantino has the right approach? Do you think UEFA is, doing the right thing in terms of blocking him? I won't sort of sly us in the end. I guess we'll never know. So thanks for joining us on this episode of the JR&Skipps podcast. Remember to hit the subscribe button. Follow us on social media platforms is JR_Skipps on Twitter and JR_Skipps on Instagram. Tap in.
Let's go.